And welcome to the Vonu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to the coercion of the state and the servile society. I'm your host, Shane, Rayo 2, coming to you from the Free Republic of PAZNIA, the Self-Liberator's Paradise. For more information on this parallel network currently being built, please visit PAZNIA, PAZNIA.com. Now, there are a lot of updates on the PAZNIA front, but tomorrow I'll be going on Agora the podcast with Second Penguin to provide those. So stay tuned for that, or check out the PAZNIA committee correspondence on Telegram, Signal, or SimpleX, for the early scoop. Today I'm pleased to properly welcome back Kyle. Welcome Kyle back onto the podcast as a co-host. So I know you were on here for for that thank you episode, man. But I consider this more kind of the formal your formal return back. So welcome back, and how's it going, man?
I'm doing better since that particular episode. There's still a lot of aftermath following, shall we say, what was mentioned in that particular episode. And I'm still dealing with the fallout, but the major, shall we say, time crunch, just insanity, it has started to slow a bit. So I can start playing catch up to some degree, but in some other ways, I'm still playing the game of whack-a-mole, right? I solve 2 problems and 3 more problems come up, kind of thing. So, in short, I'm doing a lot better, but I still have a long way to go, and I'm not out of the woods yet. But thank you for asking.
Right on, man. Well, it's good to hear that things are winding down. I was going to mention, because, I started doing this again, because this takes me back. I hadn't done this in, 5 years either, because that shit got really bad. I guess it was 2020, maybe, or 2019, when I was back doing it. But, the digitizing the old Vonu publications, I guess we used to do a lot of. Well, I got back into digitizing Vonu Life. I've got, I'll refresh you and also the listeners. I got all of Jim Stump's collection, which was basically everything that existed from the 60s to the 90s. And there's so much of it, and I wasn't really getting back to it because it was just this huge mountain that would take a lot of time. But I was like, I'll set a reasonable goal and just do Vonu Life to start, because that's the most valuable one direction, action oriented anyway. So that will be available. Obviously I'm 138 pages in now. Issue 6 out of issue 10 or 11, so it'll still be a little while, and there's another 4 or 5 books that we're working on for LA Publications, so that'll be the next big one for LUA. But there's some amazing articles in there, man. Vonu Life March 1973 was the best. It's my favorite publication that exists from that time. And this entire collection of 10 or 11 issues is there's a lot of valuable stuff, and I've kind of been trickling it out on the podcast feed over the past couple of weeks, and I will continue to do so. It's an absolute goldmine.
Hey, so much material has been lost down through the memory hole that really any attempts to archive or otherwise preserve what is still left, as well as things that were thought to have been lost but now have been rediscovered and are now being archived. All of that stuff is good, man. Really, at this point, any of the, shall we say, the historical documents that can be digitized and all that should be. And here's the reason why. It's a little hard to make a value judgment about whether a historical document is worth a shit or not if you don't have the historical document in the first place.
Yep. Perfect. Yep.
So for the people who aren't even alive yet, when they eventually do get to be around and, they're taught how to read, your basic literacy and all that, then they can, if they decide to, or otherwise, maybe it's part of their formal education, God willing, if if the future of education is done differently, whether by homeschooling or Montessori or some other non-public school approach, then the youngins will basically take a look at some of these historical documents, be like, well, this is kind of shitty, but this other stuff's really good, and then they can start making judgments. But they can only make judgments if they had the historical documents in the first place. So somebody had to go and digitize it and save it, right?
Yeah. Certainly, and there are lots of efforts. So I guess one of the things, and we'll talk more about this, or I'll talk more about this in the PAZNIA update. But one of the, I guess, the services is the PAZNIA library, and obviously we've got Veritas PAZNIA here, and we're going to have our local library, which would be like our own local Spotify and YouTube and podcasts and videos and movies and etc. Like our own private, cloud server, I guess you could say. But then we're going to have more of a we're going to have a more expansive digital one where all this stuff will have our own, anything we do here will be easily duplicatable, all over the PAZNIA network. So every single node. So that's great in that sense. And then down the road, it's a big goal. And we got to get a printing press, or an actual like big, efficient printer, and just like start actually printing these things out, and having digital copies and actual physical libraries and every single PAZNIA dispersed all over the world. So it'd be like the Library of Alexandria on like decentralized steroids, I guess. I don't know how to put it, but I don't know.
Oh, I like, or no, wait, that's actually an interesting way of putting it. A decentralized Alexandria library. I like that, or some variation. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah. So that's it's definitely important. Obviously when 2020 happened, I just kind of focused on more of the pressing items like food and those sorts of things like lambs and goats. But
I think we all did.
Yeah. So now things winded down to a point, I guess, for me as well as for you, where I've been getting back into digitizing. But obviously prioritizing, because I looked through, I'd already done like almost 200 pages of Innovator, because it's from like 1963 to like 1977 or something. There's a lot of articles and a lot of pages. But that one's not as important. It's a lot of just like that. That's minimal government stuff, like philosophical discussions, not the actual action, which is a lot more important now than the economic debates of the 1960s. We can return to that when things wind down even further, I suppose. But yeah,
it's more. Well, at this point, it's more of a history lesson. I mean,
right?
You could go
saving for posterity's sake. You're just getting it out there so it exists. Yeah, for whatever reason.
So at the risk of throwing out a free book title, yeah, you could have some kid read Murray Rothbard's The Betrayal of the American Right from cover to cover and understand everything in there. And it's not that the book is worthless. It's actually not. But you know what it is?
We'll gain a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right. But you know what it is? That particular book by Rothbard is, you know what it actually is? It's a history lesson. And it's a history he lived. But it's also a very specific kind of history, where basically the long and the short of it, if basically you go to one of my books and all, it's basically, stop joining the activist organizations, okay? Rothbard said it in that book. I'm telling you people now, we're all saying it, okay? The point is that Rothbard was arguably first past the post, because he used to be one of those guys, and then he's like, hey, I guess I was wrong. Here's all the evidence, and all the evidence took up a book to explain.
Yeah.
So I mean, but at that point, but it's kind of like, even then it's like, okay, but telling some kid don't join an activist organization is kind of like, okay, you're not going to get him hurt, but you're not exactly helping him either. What should he be doing instead? So it's like, okay, don't do reformism, kid. Okay, and so it's like it's half the answer. So again, Rothbard's book was good, but it's kind of like, okay, that's where you start from, but it's not where you end.
No, gosh, you know what this is reminding me of? Remember when we were doing the grievances series? Yeah, focusing on just the problems and not the solutions. Yeah, seems like we're harkening back to
something
6
like
years
that
ago. But that's great. We don't have to we don't have to go down that again right now. But I guess let's,
no.
No, we'll stick to We'll stick to a singular subject matter today, or try to at least. But yeah, it was good.
Sure.
Good introduction. Well, I guess we haven't really gotten the introduction, because there is a bigger introduction. But good, good start. But I guess a better place to start, considering the subject matter, is for you to briefly fill folks in on your professional employment life over the past few years or so, however long it's been, and where you're at now. And then we can get into the reason for this somewhat spontaneous discussion. So yeah, I guess I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I don't want to announce the plans for a potential series as of yet, but what I will say publicly here today is that I got sick of working multiple dead-end just over brokes, or jobs, as they are commonly known.
Yeah, you worked like 3 at a time.
Which was...
Yeah.
I have 4, actually, but
So
yes,
4,
at one point it was 3. Yeah, well, it also helps if they're contract only jobs, so I kind of pick them and drop them as I need them, kind of thing. It's just the employers. It's not a job you pay bills with, kind of thing. But yeah, how do I say this? So, there's always been the issue about, so some of the guys in the, financial independence circles, retire early and all that. It's like, okay, well, you know what? If you're some dude in IT that makes 6 figures, as long as you don't blow all your money, yeah, you could crunch some math and live simply. And then, yeah, you could retire as a multimillionaire in a couple years. Like, sure. A lot of people could do that given some similar circumstances. But if you actually had to go work in the first realm, even if you have a college education, even if we make some assumptions, you do have a college education, like a bachelor's at minimum, even if you grew up bourgeois, middle class, even if you understand the language and you're not a complete moron, let's just say average intelligence, to keep this simple. Do you, if you don't have any sort of built-in Ivy League type connections, can you actually go and get a job and or career that'll make you enough so you can have a family and get a fucking house? Yes or no? And so I guess you could say, when I kind of went on my hiatus, is I was trying to kind of answer that question. So yeah, basically over a series of many years, I was working a series of basically dead-end jobs in multiple different industries. At one point, I was a standardized test scorer for, I believe it's an internationally recognized,
I forgot about that
shall
job.
we say, huh?
I forgot about that job. Yeah, that's one I forgot about.
Yeah, it was a while back.
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm working school security, I've been thinking about that particular company again because they were a third-party corporate educational supplier tester people that only hire PhDs and then blue-collar people like me, pretty much, which is an odd combination of people to have. But yeah, there was that, when I did the educational standardized testing thing, then of course my multiple logistics jobs, where I did sortation, I did the delivery driving. I was up at corporate, so I know how to do the more business side of it and the scheduling, where it's like waves and waves, like every 15 minutes, and it's being responsible for literally hundreds of thousands of packages at one site, and then you multiply that by multiple sites. So there's like that whole thing of it. And then, of course, don't get me started about hotels, because that's its own separate thing. Just if it's something about a hotel, yes, I'm the guy to talk to. Because there's some good, there's some bad, and there's some odd stuff about hotels. And then finally, what became the actual careers, of course, which work I'm leading up to here, is security. Oh God, golly gee willikers, Batman, the guy who wrote the book on security culture, decided to go work in private security? Yes, I did.
Shocker.
Funny that. Well, and here's the worst part. Okay, so speaking of the book and how that dovetails with how I make my money, there's some unfortunate things I do have to say about the First Realm's practice of private security, and I might as well just mention it because of the book, because I was also thinking about the contents of my last book and how it relates to the career I'm now doing. Thus far, there ain't much of a security culture in private security. You ever heard of a gossip mill? Jesus Christ.
It's like any other work life. Yeah, any other work sort of life. There's a lot of work gossip.
It's more similar to those other jobs that I was kind of just briefly going over there for a moment there. The gossip mill, like all that office politics stuff is still there. That American workplace office politics
still
doesn't
corporate
change.
nonsense.
So
Follow you everywhere.
So yes, I would say that combined with just your kind of garden variety, just social pettiness type stuff. Yeah, all of that stuff is still very much present. That hasn't changed. If we're talking in general trends and terms and all that, yeah, that's very, at least in my observations, yeah, that hasn't changed. Um, I don't know. I guess, Shane, the other thing to kind of mention here, at least in passing, is there's a phrase that's used, warm body on post.
Hmm.
And what that means is either due to a legal requirement, usually a statutory law or administrative regulation by the state demanding, requiring XYZ, usually presence of a properly licensed security officer, as the lawyers would say. What they really are talking about is a guard. Then yes, there are certain companies that will hire to have a guard on post performing some sort of function because a law demands that he be there. Just that simple. Not really a free market thing, ironically enough. If it's not a legal requirement, the other thing is usually some sort of reduction in insurance liability.
Yep.
So it's an insurance reason. So at that point, you do have a choice as the company. You do have a choice. But if you don't hire the guard, your insurance premiums go up.
It's a bad
So
financial
therefore,
decision.
you're financially correct. You're financially incentivized to hire a guard because that overall reduces your overall costs by because then your insurance carrier reduces your liability premiums as long as you hired a guard.
Yeah, right.
That's the other problem too. So yeah, I know a lot of our audience will make a point about, well, one's voluntary, the other isn't. And I'm like, well, how voluntary are the first realm's insurance laws anyway?
Yeah, first realm insurance.
I mean,
look at the name of the companies. I mean, it's like State Farm and Farmers, and I don't know. It kind of sounds like a lot of the insurance names are like basically like it's like insuring the cattle is like the perception that I get. So yeah, I think first realm insurance is definitely like part of the like big Babylon sort of institutions for sure.
I used to be a customer of Progressive, which is literally the name of a major insurance company. You've all probably seen the ads.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just. So yeah, you could make arguments about, well, as long as it's financial only, it's voluntary, maybe. And it's like, okay, but here's the problem. Even if it is in the very strictest and most logical left-brained thought experiment we're putting together here, that, well, if the guard was only hired or not hired based on a financial decision by some, corporate empty suit at, let's say it's a retail store. Okay. But here's the problem. If you just hire some dude because you want to reduce your liability coverage and you have no training, you don't do any background check, or excuse me, even if you do what's legally required of you in terms of background checks or whatever, but you don't actually invest in him as an actual trusted employee, you don't do spot checks.
Yeah.
In one sense, yes, but even if legally speaking he's not, it doesn't matter anyway, because if something does go down and there is an incident, he's not going to do his job properly.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't trained how to do it, and he's not motivated to do it because, much like me and everybody else in the industry, we have been endlessly lectured at for being warm bodies on post more than once. That's why. So for the rest of us who, for whatever reason, were not demotivated and actually kind of went the other ways, you can tell by my tone of voice. And yes, I've been lectured at by a former supervisor for talking to him just like that, by the way. See what I mean by the social pettiness part of it? Yeah, it's just, I don't know what else to say. It's like, okay, look, if you want to hire a guy to basically risk his life to protect your property, fine, but you have to make at least a minimal investment to cover both your asses. Cover your ass as the company by basically showing you're having due diligence, and cover his ass to make, or in some ways, to make sure that he at least has some incentive to do his job properly. I'm not saying pay him $5 more necessarily, although that wouldn't hurt. I'm saying give him some training. I'm not saying give him the latest gear. I'm saying tell him how to write a report. Tell him how to, clear a room. Teach the man how to calmly evacuate, a building or like whatever his post is if there's like customers around. I mean, there are things you can teach your guard to do properly.
Sure.
But that does not happen. You know how many times I've talked to guys and they don't even know what their post orders are? And we're just chit-chatting. I'm not their boss. You know how many of them know what their post orders are?
Probably very few.
It's actually less than that. And the normal expectation in our industry is that when you step on post, you better, unless it's your first day, you better know what your post orders are. It does not matter whether you agree with it or not. It does not matter whether they are stupid or not. It does not matter whether your post orders are more likely to get you killed or somebody else killed or hurt or injured or not. Whatever it all is that you have agreed to as being a contracted employee, you better fucking know what it is. And if you can't recite your post orders, you are incompetent and you are subject to termination. It is that goddamn simple. And yet, they can't even, it's not even a recitation. It's like even explaining your own words would be satisfactory enough, even if you were to explain it to the police. And most guys can't even do that. And a lot of the reason is not because they're necessarily stupid. Some of them are. It's mostly because they were never told what their post orders were, even when some of them asked.
Christ.
That's how bad it is. So when they say a warm body on post, yeah, they're not talking about a human being. They look at us like slabs of meat.
Yeah.
Prostitutes get better respect than this. That's a problem. So, that being said, a good chunk of the reason for having this episode is 2 days ago, I got on post. And I need to tell you about a little bit about the client without giving a specific name.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you understand some context. So, according to our great American system of government, political science lesson number whatever the hell, in America, there are such things called independent school districts. These school districts are part of the public school systems. And they're kind of like miniature little governments that are usually attached to either a municipality government, a county government, or something else. But they're kind of their own little miniature pseudo-government kind of thing. Not completely unlike how Hong Kong is related to the rest of China sort of thing, with Hong Kong being the equivalent of an ISD pretty much. So these ISDs or independent school districts are miniature governments, and they have their own or can have their own police departments, which are separate from the police departments of the actual governments that they are more or less attached to. So, for example, a municipal city government can have a police department, and if there is an ISD that is attached or related to that municipality, that ISD will have their own separate police department. And so now the same municipality technically has, strictly speaking, 2 different police departments. See how that makes sense?
Yeah.
So, when I got on post, which is a public school, I get there, and lo and behold, the chief of police for the ISD is just chilling. So I go up and talk to him. And we then chit-chat for at least an hour, and that's how my shift started. What happened afterwards wasn't too much of a big deal. Basically, found out that the cop that I usually am forced to work with, she contracted COVID, and so they reshuffled everybody around, at least for that day. I got shuffled off to a nearby elementary school for the day. And, and as far as today goes, there was apparently no school held, which is why I was able to go run errands and then do this episode and so forth. So you can actually thank the public school system for me having today off.
So let me, I guess, just mention. So you're doing So you're doing armed public security armed security at a public school. And the way that I find this funny and ironic is the homeschooler is protecting the public school kids. But yeah.
Yeah, because very long story short, the Texas legislature passed that bill into law because a whole bunch of
Right.
political people were concerned about quote unquote active shooters. And so the legislature is like, okay, here's what we're doing. We're passing a law requiring that at least either a licensed peace officer, a cop, a bludge, and or a private commissioned security officer, that's me, has to be on the campus of a public school during normal school operating hours. And so basically, once that law got passed, the entire Texas private security industry here was ecstatic because it basically meant, as you can probably understand how lobbying works, this created an artificial demand for a lot of new armed security jobs here in Texas.
I bet it did.
So, and I wasn't necessarily running towards this, but the only reason I hopped on it was the other job was basically killing me. So, in the attempt to basically try to get my blood pressure a lot lower, because I do have diagnosed high blood pressure, unfortunately, and that was not the case before the previous job. And I used to work logistics. So if logistics didn't do me in, but the previous security job did me in, yeah, maybe I should kind of take it easy a little bit, right?
Probably so. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So working a public school is actually a lot calmer than the fucking ghetto apartment complexes in Austin, apparently. So anyway.
Yeah, so
like how many drug dealers do I have?
So we'll get to the reason your blood pressure might be a little higher. That is for that series that you mentioned. But yeah, we'll save those exciting tales for another time. The fireside tales with Kyle.
Sure. Sure. So the conversation with the chief of police.
Right. Yes.
So a couple things kind of came up. First thing that came up was, and this is kind of ironic because we essentially had a very candid conversation for an hour. Essentially, I don't want to say bearing our souls. It was more, there's no agendas here. I think this is actually probably one of the most honest conversations I've had with a statist in a long time. And not just a statist, an actual bludge, which is like really like, this is like not normal, ladies and gentlemen, like at all.
Anomalous events.
But I don't think he would have any reason to lie to me. I mean, maybe he did on maybe a few details, but like even that, I didn't get that vibe from him at all. He really seemed kind of bummed out, like really, like he was actually really worried. And I'm like, okay. He was also separately talking about a case involving that the other cop was working on, something about a teacher getting fired because of inappropriate contact with a student who was a minor or something. So there was something else also going on regarding a case they were investigating. But like, I was essentially telling the chief of police about what is considered norms in our industry, and he was telling me basically stuff that he's concerned about. We essentially traded notes, and it's like, next thing you know, he basically wants to hire me. And it's like, oh, god damn, again? I didn't say yes, by the way, but it's just like, this is becoming a sick, sad joke, man. Like, look, if the bludge are trying to recruit me to have basically do their job for them, then I guess the world has gone to shit, I guess. Because even if I were, I'm just gonna deliberately not do it well.
Right.
I mean, this is a joke. This is an absolute joke. So anyway, let's get to specifics.
Sure.
One thing that came up was he didn't like the fact that the typical DPS requirement for requalification for both commissioned security officers and personal protection officers is once every 2 years. He said that's it's too long a time period because we do it every year, he said. I'm like, okay, first of all, Chief, that's the Texas Private Security Act and the administrative regulations that DPS is, tasked by that act to enforce. That's all them doing that. That's all Texas state level stuff. So yeah, you guys in the municipality and all that, and your ISD and all that, yeah, you guys can do your stuff once every year. DPS said 2 years. So you want to take it up with them? You go do it. But like that's what we go by, because our regulatory agency's DPS. We don't answer to you. I literally said, we don't answer to you guys. Actually, as a side note, that is actually one thing interesting in the private security industry here in Texas is if the city and even county cops give us any flack, if they don't cooperate with us, if they don't do criminal trespasses, if they start doing stuff that's even for them is unprofessional, even when they're dealing with us, we are allowed to actually like bring DPS in, by the way. Like, it's like, okay, first of all, we're licensed by DPS. You guys are kind of your own thing. We asked you to do a criminal trespass. You're refusing to. I'm getting a state trooper. So basically, we're allowed to escalate things if for some reason city or county doesn't do what we want. And it has to be something that's obviously like really reasonable, right? We have a suspect, there's been a trespass, a burglary, an assault, or whatever, and then the cops are just refusing to do their job. We can bring in a state trooper. So we do have a fallback, actually, so basically to bring in more bludge, but a bludge that can out-bludge the bludge that are already there. Does that make sense?
As much as it possibly can, yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, if city bludge and county bludge are fucking around more so than usual and not doing something that involves actual victims, then us as private security can bring in state level bludge and tell them, hey boy, go sick at the other guys, and create even more of a colossal fuck up. So we actually are allowed to do that. Most guys won't, mainly because the normal practice of that is usually done by the upper management and owners of the various security companies. But I've talked enough to these guys where it's like, okay, dude, you know what the owners of these companies do? They just have a couple like watch commanders on speed dial. That's all they do. And it's like, okay, if you can just give me a couple of those phone numbers, I can fucking call these guys and I can just skip past my so-called chain of command in the company, which isn't a chain of command. And I'll go and I'll just get whoever's the nearest, watch commander. They can then dispatch whoever the closest state trooper. If the shit's really hitting the fan, it's got to be something unusual. They can just send them out and then it's done. I don't need to draw my weapon on anybody. We don't need to. It doesn't have to go. If they want to point guns at each other, they can handle that. I'll stand off to the side and take pictures. Because a lot of our job is standing around taking pictures, by the way, and typing up reports. And I told all of that to the chief of police, by the way. And he was really surprised by that. He's like, wow, you guys do a lot more report writing than we do. And I'm like, well, yeah. Also, the whole thing about, actually, I think everybody listening would probably be more interested in this part of it. Qualified immunity that the cops enjoy. That came up. Chief of police was bitching for like 2-3 minutes about, oh yeah, well, if we don't cross our T's and dot our I's, the press will, do such, like they did with our fellow officers in other areas in Texas, as he phrased it. They'll do such awful things to them where they make them look like villains and other bad guys that we usually put away. And, we can't have that. So, but thankfully we have qualified immunity to back us up. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. You have qualified immunity? He's like, yeah, of course we do. I'm like, okay, good. So that hasn't changed. It's like, really? Because if we do anything, even if we're in the right, we could still be sued. Yeah. Because remember, we're not cops. Mm-hmm. So, and remember, if we do hook up somebody, that's strictly speaking, it's a citizen's arrest. And again, it has to be one of those 3 conditions: felony in plain view, immediate breach of the peace, usually a disorderly conduct, and then, of course, preventing the consequences of theft. It's also known as a shopkeeper's privilege. But essentially, I see somebody steal something, I can put them on the ground. We don't need to have a lot of talking of, hey, what's your name? Give me your name and date of birth. No, just throw the fucker on the ground, restrain him, and get the cops on the lines. And it's not that the cops are affecting the arrest. You affected the arrest. All you're doing is getting the cops to effect a. It's actually known as a prisoner transferal. because you can't take them to the jail because that's kidnapping.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unless you're doing fugitive recovery, that's different. But if we're talking like what I'm saying as a shoplifter, no. Throw them on the ground. You see the thing, that's fine. Throw them on the ground, restrain them, hook them up, get the cops on the line, make contact with the cops, effect the prisoner transferal, and it's done. It's not that hard. I've done it. So, it's more an issue of just know what you're doing, because there are legal consequences if you fuck up. But kind of like if you put a bullet in somebody. But that being said,
probably frowned upon.
But that's also, but that's part of our training too, is the whole use of force thing. And that came up too with the chief of police too, because he's like, well, we need more training. And I'm like, well, shit, you could say that about literally everybody. And he's like, well, what kind of training did you get? Well, we had the standard level 3 DPS training, and I specifically had the standard level 4 training as well from DPS. And he's like, well, what did that cover? I said, well, we had to do a bunch of not just the live fire, range, and that was also to qualify. That was also the testing part of it too. But we also had to have baton training. We had to have the OC spray training. We also had to have handcuff training. We also had to do a combination of nerve strikes, joint locks, throws, grappling, some punching, some kicking, and what was that other thing called? I can't remember their name. I don't remember it right offhand. But yeah, or what they kind of listed. What was the phrase? Defensive combatives or whatever. Because you can't use the word martial arts because that sounds like something else, right? But if you relabel martial arts as defensive combatives, then apparently that makes it okay, even though it's exactly the same shit, right? Like a knuckle to your face is still a knuckle to your face. You can call it by a different name if you want, but the literal action of bone hitting muscle is still bone hitting muscle. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm not being mean here. It's kind of, it just becomes asinine at some point.
Yeah. Oh,
hey Shane, could you put a pause on it for a sec?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, I'm getting a phone call. Can you put a pause on that for a sec? I need to take this real quick.
No worries, go for it. That was actually a really good time.
Hey,
go ahead.
You had to pee or something? Yeah.
Well, no, I had animals break into it was a breaking and entering situation into the studio. There's a dog and a cat, so the situation's been resolved. I had to step into a private. No, I'm kidding. I'm being sarcastic. I had to step into a private security role and kick out the intruders, but the friendly animal intruders. Actually.
So the chief was basically he kept saying over and over again, we need to have more training. We need to have better training. And all I'm saying is that, well, private security gets training too. It may not be the same training that you guys get, whether it's better quality, lesser quality, unless we have a pool of people that have done both and they can make the decision about which is better or worse, then fine. But if you've got police only and then you've got security only and then we try to compare notes and nothing's jiving, then at this point, until we have people who do both, we're just comparing apples and oranges, unfortunately. Not that we shouldn't talk to each other necessarily so we can try and figure this out, but and I told him all this, by the way, until we are actually, shall we say, again, a pool of people who do both, and then they make the decision. Other than that, this is the next best thing we're doing. We're trying to compare notes. And he's like, well, what about the different ranges? I'm like, what? I'm like, well, what about the different ranges? And I'm like, okay, look, I will agree with you that obviously being able to, hit your targets at further ranges out indicates better skill than hitting your targets at closer ranges. But again, that's all making an assumption you're being stationary. The more important question is, what about when you're moving? Or how about when you're trying to go through a building? And he's like, well, I'm glad you brought that up because we need to do more CQB training. I'm like, oh my fucking Jesus Christ shit. Okay. So I've got this chief of police basically saying that their guys need to be able to do CQB. And so then I told him about my previous job doing apartment security. He's like, oh my God, you guys did that like regularly? He's like, yeah, I mean, there were certain like nights where we didn't do any at all, but we were doing at least minimum, I would say about 2 a week. Minimum, and that's a slow week.
Right.
And he's like, God, you were clearing a lot. I'm like, yeah, And we didn't have any formal training. I didn't have any formal training. A little bit of formal training I did afterwards was some classroom stuff at my own cost later that showed more diagrams, like from top down, that shows like, okay, two-man clearing, here's how to clear certain rooms, how to clear a hallway, clear an L hallway, clear a T hallway. Actually, the X hallways are actually kind of fun in the sense of how awful they are. How to move between, if you're going between buildings, crossing between buildings, minimizing yourself being a target, essentially. There's ways to do it, but God. And yes, there are only certain things you're going to learn out in the field, because the actual body movement of like leaning around a corner, which is not always a good option, but can be in some circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I know some guys like to cover corners where like one guy gets to the first guy gets to the corner, he then kneels down, second guy stays on his feet but keeps his weapon above the other guy's head and kind of peers around a bit.
Right.
I mean, like, we can get into insider baseball to some degree, but it's kind of like it's in some ways this almost feels like the equivalent of we're being forced to basically do rocket science of basically constructing rockets like being rocket scientists, but none of us have any formal education in physics. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But yet we're still expected to construct a rocket. We're still expected to launch the rocket. We're still expected for the rocket to accomplish its mission of whatever the hell the rocket's being launched. But none of us are physicists.
Right.
That's what this kind of feels like. So, and now it's like those of us who are serious, we realize how bad this is. And so we're like desperately like getting old physics textbooks and like, what the hell does this equation mean? It looks really simple. I think I saw something like this similar. Hey, remember that one time when we were putting those random chemicals together? Yeah. In this literal sense, it would be, hey, remember that one time where we actually took 3 guys and cleared this one? That was a fun story, by the way. I told the chief this too. One time we took 3 guys to clear an apartment unit, and it was an unusual circumstance because there was actually a back door that the suspect could have used to leave. And guess who was at the back door?
Who?
Yours truly. I was the one guy covering the back door while the other 2 guys came through the front door. And interestingly enough, the suspect had already left, but my job was to be absolutely certain that he didn't leave. And I could have sworn I thought I saw somebody at one point. It wasn't. Remember, the areas are dark. You're going to see things that aren't there.
Sure.
But yeah, having 2 guys clear that would not have been wise. It was a weird apartment construction design, even for a ghetto. And so, yeah, you really need 3 guys to clear that. Usually we can do it with 2. On a separate occasion, we actually got 5 people once, although that was a bit different because there was actual people inside and turned out they were tenants. It was a whole misunderstanding for other reasons. And I told the chief all this too, and it's just like, look, one thing we keep running into over and over again, and I know police don't really deal with this because police aren't business people. Oh, sorry, I kind of need to say that again in case nobody heard me the first time. Police aren't business people. Security guards kind of have to be business people. They kind of have to care about contracts and so forth because that's how they get paid.
Right.
Right? Like police are paid by taxes. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
So I said that. Oh, he chuckled a bit and then he thought about it for a second and the chief was funny. He kind of he chuckled for a moment and then he kind of grimaced because he thought about it more, like as the reality of his funding sank into his brain. It was like, yeah, when we're private, we don't get taxpayer funded money. We don't get the qualified immunity. We don't get the APCs. We have customers. We have clients. We have contracts. And we do everything at full liability, numbnuts.
Right.
What else is there to say in some ways beyond that? So police don't have. So when I talk about, oh yeah, my company this, my company that, the client, these clients, the clientele, cops don't talk like that.
Yeah.
They
So
don't
I guess
have to.
yeah. That's the main thing when we had that short text exchange. Was it yesterday? Yesterday morning. I think it was. But yeah. I mean, so yeah. I mean, we're talking right now. You know, like and yeah. To like technically speaking, yeah. You know, you guys are paid by your private customers and contracts, and the blood you're paid by funded by taxation. But even that said, private policing and private security in the current state isn't actually free market, especially considering the bureaucratic state and corporate nonsense that we've kind of been talking about a little bit this evening. So yeah, the inefficiency is baked in. They're not supposed to be like good at doing their jobs. Like yeah, I mean that's not. I don't know. I don't know. It's a feature, not a bug. The rule, not the exception. And I guess the positive, or I guess the what I'd focus on in this circumstance is like we've got like these so more like obviously like a red market bludge, the public, the public securities so called. And then you have the private ones, which would be more like, let's say, like in terms of agorist market theory, like maybe like white market, right? Like it's not, it's regulated private security. But in the second realm, it'd be, obviously a couple of steps further than that. Maybe not, obviously not into anything, bad in the agorist market theory sense, but yeah, further in the sense that like these inefficiencies wouldn't be there. Obviously, the funding would be private. It'd probably be like Bitcoin or Monero, and people would security. I've had a couple instances of private security training on here at Veritas, and yeah, I will say that I guess we did some training here that may not be necessarily standard. So I guess that's a good thing. Our pseudonymous Pat Henry. Cheers, Pat Henry. But yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about the agorist theory of the five markets, because I think that might explain some things here. If you don't mind, if we could just get into that just a little bit here, and
Sure,
how it relates to private security and the different elements we have to deal with. So, and I also think this would also distinguish between first realm and second realm as it relates to private security as well. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. The first realm, private security, is literally white market.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is taxed, it is regulated. You are living your life under a microscope, and you better be fucking straight-laced. And if you do anything wrong, you will lose it in a second. It's not very stable. At least not in a first realm sense. It definitely isn't. It took me a long time to realize that. And I'm still going to try and see if I can get some professional experience working some close protection details, because I think that would help me get my firm started. But other than that, like, I'm already looking to see if I can do some more investigative kind of work. I mean, I'm also a certified process server, so I've already got some professional investigative experience under my belt already. I think that's what I'm going to be kind of leaning more into, because that kind of work seems to be a lot more stable.
Yeah.
It could be argued it's safer as well, but for me, the danger, I mean, considering the nature of the occupation, it's kind of like, what do you think you signed up for, kid? That's never been so much an issue for me. The issue for me is, if it is an issue of danger, what happened with the last job was that upper management was so callous, they were literally doing stupid things that increase an already dangerous situation even further, right? That was kind of on them. But the danger issue aside, it's just more like what you were saying earlier, a combination of basically the Texas Private Security Act and the related administrative regulations that the Department of Public Safety, DPS, is tasked with administering. Those you mentioned about the baked-in inefficiencies and so forth. Well, yeah. So when I told the chief of police, we'll take it up with DPS, and he gives me this look, it's like, well, I think that's probably because he's starting to realize some of the status. It's just that he can't do the status stuff of that nature, right? So it's like, oh, he can't be first past the post. He's jealous now, or whatever his issue was. He just didn't like it or whatever. I don't know. I just
So I guess so can I bring up? I'll bring up another kind of example that would be closer to Agora to I guess the second realm version of private security that I envision. But I think even
sure.
something like threat management center and Detroit. I think like the private, even if it's first realm private security, white market private security, like that's becoming so much more prevalent and needed today because the response times, especially in like the bigger cities, like Austin, Detroit, New York City, places like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
The response time of like if someone's getting like beaten and shot at or so like or theft is occurring, it doesn't do any good if they show up an hour later. So private security is usually in that regard, whatever fashion we're talking about, whatever part of the spectrum we're talking about, they're always faster.
Right.
So they deal with. I mean, I would say like in a lot of circumstances, they probably deal with like the private security you type of folks probably deal with a lot more shit than the actual fucking. They show up when you have the situation under control, which is par for the course. And then they're there to file the paperwork. Yeah.
Or there are a bunch of Johnny come latelys to. Okay, very, very brief story in case I've never said this publicly. The one time my former supervisor found a suspect with a rifle in his car and he was asleep late at night. That, you know which one? Okay, you know which one I'm talking about? Did I ever tell you this one?
I don't think so, no.
I'll keep it very, very short because the actual story is pretty long. It was toward the end of the shift. Supervisor had made some radio dispatch call-outs mentioning she thought it was just a dude sleeping in his car. Lease agreements basically say that nobody can be camping out and fucking around in the parking lot after curfew being defined as 10 p.m. So nobody's supposed to be drinking or carousing or having sex or drinking alcohol or blaring loud music or playing basketball or any one of 1,000 different activities late at night in the common areas of the apartment of any of these apartment complexes and so forth. Supervisor found not just the dude sleeping, but like a weapon with like ammunition and shit. And and to be fair, he wasn't threatening anybody, but it was enough of a concern, like, dude, what the fuck are you doing kind of thing, right? Like, none of this is normal. So she decided to roll PD. She told me to get there, and I was close enough anyway. So the police excuse me, let me rephrase. The police came in waves. I beat most of them. Some of them were already there, but the problem was that this particular property had disconnected parking lot sections that you would have to access from different roads. And they were on the completely different opposite side of the property from where she and the suspect were. And they didn't know how to get over there, but I did because there's this one back alley you can use that where if you basically just rev the car real fast and you kind of like hop over some of the potholes, you can get there in like less than a minute. But they didn't know that. I did. So I kind of made contact with them first because I thought they found her, and they're like, oh no, she's somewhere over there. And they're like, no, stay with us. I'm like, yeah, I actually turned my back. You guys will probably love this. I actually turned on my heel to those bludge, and I said, I don't work for you. And then I turned back to my patrol car, flipped the lights on, and I sped off. And they didn't stop me or nothing. It was great. It was actually a nice moment, actually. I think I hurt somebody's feelings, though. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's in some ways, I guess it depends about how gung ho are the specific bludge that you're dealing with at any particular moment, and most of them are worthless sacks of shit that you would not want to hire to cut your lawn.
Yeah.
To mow your lawn, to babysit your children, to wash your dishes, to clean the gutters, or any one of 1,000 other household chores you can think of, much less help you in a life or death incident. Right. Because I've dealt with them with the life and death incident. Yeah. Anyway, how that particular situation worked out was they eventually surrounded the guy's car. Basically, did a Austin Police Department, you're under arrest, come out with your hands up, just basically out of a movie kind of thing. They did this like repetitively. They woke up the entire fucking like everybody around because they were being really loud and obnoxious. And it's like 4, 5 something in the morning. And the guy eventually wakes up. He then turns the car on, attempts to flee, rams into a barricade, never left the actual property. They then hook him up, throw him in the back of a squad car. Then they find out not only was the rifle stolen, the car was stolen as well. And there was also a possibility he shouldn't have been in the country in the first place, for all you people who might be slightly right-wing might want to care about. So, oh yeah, and he didn't speak a word of English either, because I tried to talk to him as well. So that was fun. So hey, nobody got hurt, well, except him, but he kind of deserved it. More for just being stupid than actually hurting anybody. He rammed a car into a concrete pillar after the bloods had already surrounded him. I mean, Jesus, at that point, it's like, dude, you know when somebody's got the drop on you, maybe you should do what you're told. More out of a sense of survival than anything else, right? But no, he's like, nope, I'm gonna take off in my little car. That's not even mine. So that was fun. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just I'm just not very impressed with a lot of these pink market bludge, to go back to your the agorist markets, or theory of the 5 markets, excuse me. So yeah, your the private security really is white market. I would say the police really are the pink market, really, because the whole taxation, the whole military conscription, all the 20 million, unconstitutional, especially those, because those are really blatant, like regulations and laws and such. I mean, that's all like solid pink market stuff. Red market would be more like your actual, I mean, I could say felons, but let's just say your actual violent criminals. More your like organized criminal syndicates, the gangs, human traffickers, and others and of course your good old fashioned, burglars and domestic violence dudes and all that. That stuff's all red market. So. And basically, so yeah, when I talk about hooking people up, I'm talking about like all the red market people. And then of course, when you mention about Second Realm, that's of course your black and your gray, right?
And that's where
your 5 markets.
Yeah, and that's where. So I guess just to tease a little bit, I guess the series. Obviously, we're gonna get into, like I said, like we're gonna have a fireside chat with Kyle. I'm gonna get the joints out. I'm gonna get a glass of whiskey. I implore you guys to do whatever you prefer, similar on your end, cup of tea or whatever, biscuit. I don't know, wherever the hell you are. We've got some England listeners, so maybe that would be what they do, tea and a biscuit. I don't know, stereotypes, but anyway, yeah, we'll go over some of your stories, Kyle, which from some of the ones I've heard. See, there's a plenty. We'll go through some of those, and I guess what I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to them all, but obviously it's kind of like with the direct action series, or I guess not even that. It's with the Vonu Podcast when we started, and we had to go through all the philosophy stuff at the beginning. We want to get to the action. Well, that's kind of how I'm excited to talk about some of the second realm solutions with you, because we've had a number of conversations over the past few years. That I think it's gonna be fun to revisit again, especially with a lot of the crypto anarchy sort of the tech that's around now. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, that's just a couple episodes. I'm sure there's other ones will come up in between.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's just that just to kind of close this out regarding my chat with a local with a local ISD chief of police. It was just that whole conversation was I would say it was part surreal, but also partially very and uniquely enlightening, because it's not normal for a somewhat, I wouldn't necessarily say high ranking, but he is the head of his department, of his agency. So it's like, let's go ahead and say high ranking, because he's the guy, right? I even remember when, actually, excuse me, I should have said this earlier. I remember when I walked in, I said, so, or it was one of the first things we said to each other within like the first 5 minutes. But I remember asking him, so I said, "So are you the client?" He's like, "What?" Well, I was like, "Well, I talk. We work for the particular ISD and all that. Since you're the chief of police, does that make you the client?" He's like, "Yes." So I said, "So you're the guy?" He said, "Yes, I'm the guy." So yeah, apparently at least, I mean, unless he was joking, but apparently, according to the chief of police, he's the client.
Yeah.
Now that begs another question. So with that legislative bill that got passed, the active shooter one,
Yeah.
does that mean that if there is, I don't know if Texas ISDs have necessarily their own police department. I thought it kind of depended. But of the ones that do, does that mean that those police, let's say departments, do those police departments, if they contract a security company to help them satisfy the legal requirement, since it's again having warm bodies on post, right? Does that mean that not only did that law create an artificial market demand for private security just in general, but also it simultaneously enabled a lot of, shall we say, police departments to become clients of said private security companies? Because remember what I told you before in some of our private, I don't think you would mind me saying this publicly, but remember when I told you before about, like, right here local in Austin, Camp Mayberry? And by the way, I checked even earlier today, that job posting's still up, where they have armed security officers protecting the soldiers at Camp Mayberry because the soldiers themselves aren't allowed to have weapons.
Right. Oh, yeah. So this goes back to So I guess maybe it doesn't, but I remember whenever it was one of the very first memes I made, and it was the Texas National Guard with their magic compasses because they couldn't actually carry
Right.
carry firearms, so they just carried their own compasses, and it's like, okay, well, you guys are real tough. You guys are a bunch of badasses there. So it's kind of the same situation. Like, I mean, Texas does not like. I don't know. Like, I don't know. We kind of demasculate their. I don't know. Seems like a trend.
It is a form of neutering, but I think it's more diabolical than that in a different way. So, how do I say this? There's very much a tendency to try and outsource things here. I would say that there's very much a tendency to contract things out, to have, oh shit, this is relevant to that's relevant to what I was mentioned to the chief about too, is that he actually straight up asked me, "Do you work for such and such security company?" And I said, and I hesitated for a second, and there was a reason why. And he's like, "Wait, what's wrong?" He said, "Okay, look, and I said the name of the cop that I usually work with. Look, you're her boss. So usually I'm not supposed to say this because my actual supervisor told me not to say this. But since you're her boss and you're the chief of police, I figured you would be like, it's basically you and her were pretty much the only ones that need to know this. But I'm not an employee of such and such company. My actual employer is this other company. And what I'm a subcontractee. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, I did discuss with the chief of police of a local ISD here that, and apparently I'm finding this out because when I got hired, nobody told me about. I just fell into it. I found this out as a new hire, that apparently private security companies, very similar to certain types of tenants when they sublease out an apartment from a landlord, in a very similar way how you would do a sublease, security companies can subcontract out assignments, posts, contract, and so forth. So, for example, let's say if security company A has 100 contracts and they have enough manpower to satisfy, let's say, 90 of them, but they're understaffed, or maybe some people got sick or whatever, they got 10 short. Well, then how do they fill that gap? Because they need those warm bodies on post, right? Well, then they go to security company B and say, "Hey, do you have any spare people?" And let's say for whatever strange reason, security company B Maybe they lost a couple clients. Hey, shit happens. For whatever reason, they say, yes, we have a couple people available. What do you need? We have 10 open posts. They said, hey, well, we don't have 10 people, but I can give you 5. Okay, 5 is definitely better than fucking 0. Give me your 5 people. Guess what happens to those 5 people? Those 5 people are subcontractees. They are subcontracted out to Company A's client. Company A's, and here's the best part, Company A's client doesn't know about the existence or the involvement of Company B. They think that the employees of Company B are actually the employees of Company A, but they don't know or understand or even have any sort of knowledge or comprehension.
Dude, why are we talking
about the
why
fact
are we
that
talking about derivatives trading? Why are we talking about the finance market right now? Oh wait, we aren't. Never mind.
It's about that bad, isn't it?
It's the derivatives market with real warm bodies, or however you put it. Yeah.
Yeah, with warm bodies on post.
Warm bodies on. There you go.
Yep. There you go. Yep. And of course, yes, I'm trying to make it sound as glib as possible, but I have to make it sound like that because if an actual incident happens, it's potential life and death. So, depending on the nature of the incident. So, now, if there's no incident, just a normal day, hey, who gives a shit, right? Yeah, another day, another dollar. But again, a lot of what we're paid is not for what we actually do, it's what we can do.
Right. So
that being said, that's why being really like overly certified and overly trained and overly experienced is more of an asset than a liability, even though a certain someone in my life disagreed with me about that, and well, we don't exactly talk anymore. That being said, yeah, I don't know how else to phrase this. It's just it's an interesting way you phrase it, derivatives trading. Yeah, so the whole subcontracting out thing, I was trying to explain that to the chief of police. He said, oh, okay. And here's the best part, Shane. This is the creme de la creme. This is probably the perfect thing to end out on, is what the chief said. And I tried not to laugh out loud. I did excuse myself a moment later, and I laughed in the bathroom because it was a great way to release a lot of tension, because the supervisors of the other company, who are not my actual supervisors, would come on post and they would give me a hard time because, why aren't you wearing the company uniform? Because I haven't been issued one. Well, that's not an excuse. Turn around. Let me take a picture of you. It's like, okay. So a lot of just demeaning, just horrendous shit out in public kind of thing, in front of like multiple witnesses. I mean, this isn't like done in like a back office somewhere, right? And now I just get to laugh at them. And here is the reason why. Okay, here's the creme de la creme. The chief of police told me in person that they were going to drop the contract with the other company, and instead they're going to take all of their contracts with all of the schools in just that particular ISD, and they're essentially going to keep it in-house. The way the chief explained it was that they're going to start a separate school security unit. They're going to recruit people into it, and they're going to keep them there for approximately, depending on the time frame. He's like, I'm not sure if I want to do like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, but whatever the time period is, we're going to keep them in there. And if they want to stay there long term, hey, no harm, no foul. We could use the help. But if they want to like transition into actual law enforcement, as he phrased it, then the security unit for that period of time would essentially function as a type of tryout to being actual police. And I told him, that's actually quite ingenious, sir. You probably should consider doing that. And he's like, okay, cool. Yeah, well, we're going to do it. I'm like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. It was a temporary post for me anyway, and I didn't like the other company that I'm forced to deal with anyway. So yeah, Shane, the reason I was laughing so hard when I just had to get away from him so I could just kind of let myself release all that tension is because all those, supervisors from the other company who aren't my supervisors and all that, just giving me a hard time, they're gonna have a hard time of it as soon as they lose that contract, because I know, because what happened with my former employer, I know what happens with middle and upper management whenever they lose a client, whenever they lose a contract. It's bad, man.
Yeah.
It's literally pretty much the worst. It's like the second or third worst thing to happen. Right? You you can't exactly make bank and bring in an income and keep a business viable if you keep losing clients.
Right. Yeah.
If you can't, as my former upper management phrased it, if you can't service the contracts, that phrase, if you don't service the contract, okay, you don't get paid, kind of thing. And obviously police don't understand that. But yet I have the chief of police, who is technically a client, telling me, yeah, we're going to basically fire all y'all and do everything in-house. And then that's when he also segued to, by the way, I want to hire you. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. That's why I had to get away from it, politely excuse myself and go to the bathroom. That's just like, dude, the chief of police just fucking made my day for so many reasons. So that's my story when I went to work, got on duty, and the chief of police of a local ISD was like, hey, we need to have a chat. And obviously not in trouble, but it was a candid conversation about stuff in his line of work, stuff in my line of work, and how things kind of shifted around, and some things that I learned that never would have learned anywhere else, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's definitely interesting, man, and not certainly not surprising, but it's good to get those reports. And I guess I will go ahead and just mention, since it's been brought up before, Just Below the Surface: A Guide to Security Culture. Kyle's book is available via LEO Publications on paperback format, and the audiobook is also available for free on the Vonu Podcast podcast feed. So you can go check out that 3.5 or 4 hour audiobook for absolutely nothing. But if you'd rather not listen or not look at a screen, you can certainly get a paperback copy. And I guess I'll mention, Kyle, I don't know if I've ever told you the story about the cover. I sent you a copy of it and you've seen the cover. So Aura, my free wife, she had one of our friends in Michigan. She took a picture of him in like a hooded sweatshirt, and they like obviously took out the face and all that. This cover design was probably one of the most intricate ones that she did. And it came out pretty fantastic.
It's a beautiful piece of art, like it is, and it really. I always meant to compliment whoever did it, and unfortunately, my life took a different turn at that time, and so I never got around to. But hey, better late than never, right? I always wanted to compliment whoever did the cover for my last book. It really did do it justice. I think it was about as perfect, given the nature of the contents of the book and the tone of it and so forth. I think that cover was about as perfect as it was going to get if you were to encapsulate the content of the book in like a visual image.
Right. Yeah.
I think the cover was pretty much the only thing that I can conceive of that did it perfectly, pretty much. I cannot think. Even if hypothetically there was a better way to do it, I can't think of it. Hell, I couldn't even think of what I think is a perfect thing that was already done. So, hey, I'm saying it's perfect, and I wrote the damn book. So, perfect. Yes, perfect. The cover is the cover is perfect. Yeah, and I wrote the book, so hey, I would know, right? So yeah, it's it sets the mood. Now look, if I were to get petty, and I'm not. If I were to hypothetically say something like, well, if the color palette was like really bright, that would give an impression that the book was this happy book, and it's not, because I say a lot of negative. No, obviously the color palette was not bright and happy and cheerful. And so that criticism is inapplicable, right? Because anyone who looks at it, obviously it's not like a children's bedtime storybook type thing where you have bright colors or something, right? No. So everything from the imagery to the photography to the color palette to the whole thing is perfect. I don't know how much more descriptive I can get. Like, I look at it and let's go, yeah, that's pretty much the book. Because, and it's interesting too, a lot of it was, and in terms of, and specifically about the colors, a lot of it was actually very appropriately gray and black. too.
Yeah.
Which is very appropriate,
Yep.
very
Yep.
second realm, shall we say. So, and not only that, but it's also, speaking of gray and black, there's, technically can borrow it off that one website, but there's technically a trope that's referred to as black and gray morality. And what some people who believe, or it's a type of literary theory, but basically about tropes or whatever. But there's this theory that basically some humans have a perspective on morality where they don't believe in any notion of good, but they do believe in notions of evil, and then like less evil, slightly good, but it's kind of a gray mixture. And then that's kind of how they view things. Like nobody is good, but like some people are definitely like really, really evil, and other people are just kind of like neutral, mediocre, and that's your gray kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about that too the other day. And, you know, in a lot of ways, the practice of security culture proves itself even in a non-agorist, non-counter-economic context. Even if you were to apply a black and gray trope morality to it, security culture still works, because kind of like James Madison said, you know, about if men were angels, we wouldn't need government or something. Well, it's like, okay, put the government part out of it a second. Men aren't angels. Let's stick with that, okay? So men aren't angels. Some men are probably actually demons. I think that's your black part, right? So if you were to say that humans are a combination of evil and then just kind of mediocre, not really good, just kind of going to get along and just lame kind of thing.
Oh shit! Sorry. Never mind. I just checked to see how long the audiobook was for Just Below the Surface, and it looks like it's 9 hours.
Are you serious?
Is that right? Here, I'll check the Odyssey. Only mute it real quick so it doesn't come through on the feed, but maybe that's just a fucking podcast thing tweaking out. I don't think it was 9 hours. I think it was like 4 hours. It must be tweaking out. Yeah, there's no way. But anyway, you can continue. I'm sorry. I was kind of stunned. Oh, that's a promo. That's not going to help us. Never mind. Well, I guess I'll have to look into that. 9 hours and 32 minutes. I guess it might. Maybe it is. Maybe it is, actually. It probably is, actually, because Vonu the Search for Personal Freedom would be like 3.5 hours. So, yes, it's actually like a 9.5 hour audiobook available for free on the website. Wow, okay. I fucking sold that shit.
Well,
yeah. It's a big book. You guys be wise to check
well,
it out.
it was Well, I can definitely tell you, as far as the book goes, it's definitely longer than the first one. So the fact that as an audiobook it would be longer makes more sense.
Yeah, and we should mention An Elusive Phantom of Hope, A Critique of Reformism, because that is available too. Smaller book. One, I don't promote this one very often. I promote Just Below the Surface a lot, but this one is, I mean, by this point, anyone I talk to is already past political crusading. So it's like if someone stumbles across it on Amazon, like, you know, their random statist or NPC or whatever, they'll have a good starting point to shatter their fucking reality on political crusading in a very pleasant way, and unpleasant way at the same time. So that's good. That's available.
Well, I would say the first book is really best for, I would say, the garden variety status, and I say it's more of like a litmus test, because if they either disagree or refuse to comprehend or some other cognitive issue with anything I've said in there, then we don't really have anything more to discuss, because we have to have a baseline of commonality somewhere. And if somebody is still doing your lobbying, your protesting, all the stuff I mentioned in the first book, then here's the problem. Even if we were to try something very different, something very second realm, all some sort of naysayer would have to do, who's still hanging on to that other stuff, would be like, oh, no, we can just go do voting or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, yo, point of commonality is that we already ditched that stuff a long time ago. I already explained the reasons why. This is the baseline. If you are
Bingo.
disagreeing with the
Well
baseline,
said.
we have literally nothing more to talk about. Well, it is me setting a boundary, because God forbid I set boundaries with people, because apparently I've been getting a lot of flack about that lately.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
And so even in a political sense, or shall we say an anti-political sense, the whole point of a good chunk of the first, or good, I guess, a praxis of the first book is I'm setting a boundary with all of the statists, which is, this is the baseline. I am not saying you have to agree with me about DROs or any sort of, excuse me,
Dispute resolution
or any sort of, right, or any sort of post-government arrangement of our economic affairs, or any. I'm not even saying any. We're not going to have to get into the twin libertarian axioms of whatever and whatever. Like, we don't need to even get into any of that stuff. I am not asking anybody to comprehend argumentation ethics. God forbid.
Far past that. Yeah. Yeah.
I am literally saying, with any garden variety statist, here's the boundary. The boundary is the contents of the first book. If you are still clinging on to waving a cardboard protest sign because you want to shave the whales, or whatever your petty little cause of the week is, because it is petty. I don't care if it's Black Lives Matter or it's Blue Lives Matter. It's all pathetic. And it's pathetic not even necessarily because of the cause itself, but because of how the cause is promoted, but because of how it's executed, because of its very praxis, because it's still begging the state for undue favors and all that. So this is the boundary. You are still clinging on to this list of stuff I'm mentioning, then we don't need to talk to each other. You have decided you are my enemy. I have given you a chance to not be my enemy. You are being stubborn about wanting to be my enemy, so now we are enemies. I have given you the olive branch. I have sent you the white doves, and you have trampled and shot them to hell. This is not my fault.
Yes. So I would 100% agree, but I would for me, I would change the verbiage a little bit and just so instead of saying enemy, they're not necessarily my enemy, but they have certainly shown that they have not forsworn the use of coercion in some fashion if they're still holding on to coercive institutions, and therefore they won't be granted access to our beautiful and flourishing networks essentially. More, and so I guess that's the way that I just put it. Just toss my perspective out there.
Maybe. And for now, maybe that could work. It just, going into the future, it's kind of like, if they're going to be an opponent to you today, and things are relatively, shall we say, CALM right now, then if God forbid things get more exciting down the road, whatever length of time that happens to be, and why wouldn't we become enemies of the state later?
Well,
because
I get
10,
okay,
15.
Yeah.
Again, it's like right now we're trying to do the olive branch. They swapped it away. Okay, we tried. They don't want to. We break off.
For sure.
And then time passes. Next thing you know, they're on a new crusade to basically go after all the thought criminals, and like doing it for real this time, where like they're burning down like forests or something, and sending out drones and robot soldiers or whatever the fuck future shit's gonna be. And of course, some sort of AIs through the smartphones is probably going to be more the espionage version of it. Don't get me started about Replica, by the way.
I still wanted to get you a ghost phone and one of the ghost tablets. The ghost tablets are badass. I've told you about those before.
Yes, please. Yeah, but that being said, man, yeah, it's talking with that very statist chief of police, but in an unusually honest way for once, is just. And by the way, I've seen him around the campus before, but he was always meeting with his subordinate, and then he would just kind of take off. This is like the first time we really talked. And because otherwise we don't really have any reason to talk to each other, but he needed to talk to me for business reasons. And then we were just chilling for a bit because there was nothing else to do for a little bit until the other company that was technically because of how this whole subcontracts work, all the supervisors had to go talk to each other, and I had to let them know, and the whole bureaucratic thing had to sift itself out. And while we were waiting for all the bureaucrats to get their shit together at the different companies, me and the client, the chief of police, were just chit-chatting for a while, and like, God, that whole conversation was just surreal. Like, because usually when you think about having an encounter with the police, it's usually in the context of either a traffic stop or somebody called the cops to your house for whatever reason, whether it's a legitimate reason or not, or for some reason, like a domestic or something, or let's say you had a block party and music's too loud, or, or something happened at work, like usually an injury or something, and there might be suspicious circumstances. Or, basically, but let me put it this way. When the cops are called, it's not because you're having a fun time, right? Kind of like when the paramedics come, it's not because you're having a fun time. With the difference being is that the police are probably going to fuck you up somehow. And maybe you deserve it, maybe you don't. But the point is, in terms of the fear, that's usually what's going on in people's heads. Doesn't matter if you actually did something wrong or not. It does not matter if you're actually truly guilty or not. You see the police, the fear goes up. That's a normal thing, by the way.
Yeah.
So
people know their freedom could be taken away. Yeah, even if they don't not like them, they know that their freedom could be taken away.
Yeah. Yeah. So that being said, it kind of comes down to under what circumstances would somebody be able to talk with one of the police, but like more like where you're like closer to being like in a context where you're more like normal people, not where the context of a situation is and the timing of it too is adversarial, where there's conflict, right? Or as well, I remember when one cop talked to one suspect, and I know I said this to a suspect of mine at a different time, where I said, "Look, we're not having a conversation anymore. You listening? We're not talking anymore. I am giving you a command to do, X, Y, Z. You do it. You do it now. You don't do it, I put you on the ground. Is that clear?" See, so you see, like, the way you talk to a suspect when things are starting to escalate is obviously very different from when you're talking to somebody normally, right? So, that being said, it's not really normal to talk to, and especially a chief of police in particular. Like talking to even a run-of-the-mill beat cop, just chit-chatting, even that's not even that normal. And a chief of police is even more rare. So this was actually kind of something unique that happened. I literally walked into it. This was not planned, man. I literally walked into it, and I'm like, well, shit. If life gives you lemons, I think I'm gonna make some sort of lemonade flavored drink kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. And I'll share it at some point in our private security series when it's relevant. Hold off for a little longer. I guess there's one other thing that will strengthen the legal interstice further. That will hopefully be happening next month or two, and then I will talk about it further. But yeah, nothing. I guess it would be kind of in the vein we've talked about it before, Kyle. Kind of in the vein of the paper trip, but using foreign countries. I'll just leave it there. If you read my book, if you want to learn more about it, I kind of lay out a scenario that may or may not be real. I don't know. You have to figure it out yourself. But yeah, you can read my book and figure out a potential scenario. The second edition came out on 9/11. It dropped on 9/11, like other things did a while ago. So, yeah, you can pick that up. Anyway, Kyle, it's good to talk again, man. Good to have you back on the podcast. And anything else we missed that you wanted to work in for this episode? I know we got a lot in the future, so there's no need to. Yeah, but if there's anything we missed that you wanted to cover, yeah, please do.
Maybe not necessarily anything missed, just to kind of encapsulate real quickly, just to kind of cover the ground, because I know we mentioned kind of a lot of different things here. Basically, Chief of Police was concerned that lack of training in the private security industry, which he was correct about. I did confirm that for him. The whole thing about warm bodies on post, which he was surprised to hear that from me. I told him that was normal. I then relayed to him that I was told that I was unusual for being one of the motivated ones, and I said, "Well, wait a minute. I work armed security. By being armed, I'm already uh, unusual. Actually, all of us that are armed security, in whether uniformed or plainclothes, we're automatically unusual, quote unquote, because a lot of private security is actually unarmed. That's actually more the norm than anything else. So this whole bill by the legislature is an attempt to grow the private security industry specifically towards being armed as well. So, I mean, there's kind of that whole dynamic too. Another thing to kind of encapsulate real quick is cops are. I said it before. I'll say it again. The Bloods are still trying to recruit me again. Now it's an actual chief of police to my face saying, I want to hire you. Like, good God, man. I do not necessarily try to go up to all of these guys while I'm, I do not pound the doors of all of these agencies asking for a job. I literally only did it once.
So this is interesting, man. So you're talking about going out on your own. No need to work with them, but if they can slide one of your cars to someone that needs some help, no reason not to. You're not just a reference, a personal reference in anything. I don't have to refer to what their jobs are or whatever, but those might be actually valuable relationships in the future for one of your. I don't know how all that works, but just something that came to mind.
I don't know, man. All I'm saying is I pretty much apply. I will say this publicly. I only applied to one specific police department once. I still haven't heard anything back, and at this point, it's more of a fallback thing in case current job goes tits up, because I'm actually about to hear back about the status of the contract of the post I was supposed to be working this entire time. But yeah, it was just kind of like. Aside from the one department I did apply to, and by the way, I did apply for two positions, and one of those was as a dispatcher. So like literally the guy on the radio, it's like, okay, so I can literally hear all the horrendous shit that's going on and all that. And I also have to take calls from like panicky people who are like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. I'm like, okay, just give me your address and I'll send the cops, kind of thing, right? But like aside from that one department, it's literally everybody else. Two different county sheriff's departments. One DPS trooper wanted to take me as his protege, apparently. Multiple city cops. It's just like, city police departments. It's just like, okay, this is getting fucking ridiculous now. And now, of course, with this chief of police of this one particular ISD who shall go unnamed, now he wants to hire me directly. And I'm like, good God, like, I cannot make this shit up. This is just getting absurd. It's like, all I can think of, man, is like, if any of these guys ever got wind, it almost makes me kind of wonder how thorough, as a side note, and I will say as the very last concluding thought, as an interesting experiment, and not as a thought experiment, because this is actually a real one in motion where the results are not in yet, but it makes me wonder how good their background investigators are in determining what statements I may or may not have said publicly in the past, shall we say, more than 5 years ago, regarding what exactly I thought of government police and their assorted, moneyed interests.
No, so I certainly no, I'm with you, man. Like the ability is there, the ability is there, but I think a lot of that is just like they don't actually, as we've talked about many times, they don't actually do the fucking work anymore. A lot of police work now is like going on Facebook. It's like what is it called in the I guess in the hacker world. It's public intelligence, whatever it is. It's just public intelligence. Like I can go and figure that shit out. It's not hard. That's what they're allowing now. It's like actual like detective work, actual like investigations. I don't think that happens as much as people think it is. Now, I'm not trying to discount what is out there. There are fusion centers, NSA, like all that shit does exist, but Yeah, at the same time, yeah, the amount of digital communications that are out there today. Yeah, if you aren't an idiot, you can probably blend in. And if you use, especially if you use privacy enhancing technologies, unless you're, unless you're like specifically targeted, because then you're probably fucked regardless of what you do. So if you're not specifically targeted, you stay under the radar, like you're probably okay. As far as I can see it. But yeah, I don't know if you disagree at this point, Kyle.
At this point, we're going to get an answer either way. It's already in motion. And all I'm saying is, I think I have a hypothesis for what the answer might be, but I still want to wait and see what the result is, because I think the inclination is more towards what you said.
And I do have, sorry, I do have experience with this. I do have, because if you remember, and this is on the LEO website, it is available. But if you remember back in like 2016, after the Malheur wildlife refuge situation, where the FBI investigatory documents for that came out, and they were looking for Gary. So they were basically transcribing any interview Gary was in, and I interviewed him once, so I got the fucking privilege, I guess. But they said, like Shane LNU, and I was like, what the fuck does LNU mean? So I went and looked up Shane, last name unknown.
They couldn't even get that right.
And I was like, hold on a second. There's like 100 articles on the LUA website that have my last name on there. And these were not for public dissemination. There's no redacting or anything like that in any of these. So like that was literally just like the investigator was not paying attention to me whatsoever. He was looking for what Gary said. But I am quoted in an FBI investigator document, which is like, I don't know, kind of a badge on the
you were being treated almost like you were being treated right. Well, you were being treated more like a material eyewitness. But here's the problem: even I know, because we have when we get our licenses, we have to be given a minimal degree of investigative training, more for the purpose. So when we write our reports, both the daily activity report entries, which is the routine reports, as well as the incident reports, basically, which is the shit hits the fan, and this is the stuff that might go to court if it's serious enough, kind of thing.
You got to make sure you ask all the right questions and obtain all the right information. Yeah.
It's actually the most important skill any guard can have, even for the unarmed guards. And you'd be surprised how many of the unarmed guards suck at writing incident reports. You'd be surprised. So they can't do their jobs very well. So it's funny you mentioned about the cops doing something similar, because what we were taught was that for even if you're dealing with, it does not matter if it's suspects, victims, material eyewitnesses, and others. It's like first and last name. There's a certain list of details you have to get. Not necessarily asking for social security numbers, but at least contact information, a reference, something, right? But the fact I remember what you're talking about. The fact that I can now say, as a professional as a security professional, as a licensed security professional.
Ooh, that
FBI agent was being right. Yeah, that makes me special, right? Fine. How about this? I'm a security professional. See, if I call myself a professional because I get paid money to go do a thing and walk around in circles and take pictures and write reports, that makes me a professional, right? So as a professional, as a security professional, as a licensed security professional, that FBI agent was fucking lazy. Whoever the intelligence analyst was.
It was one of their fucking lackeys that was just gathering up information. They had no idea what they were doing or what they were looking at. But yeah, I guess that's the other thing too. The human component. So we're talking about the same thing. Like those investigators are trained about as well as private security officers are today, I guess. Is what we're getting to.
It's actually less.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's less. It's less because we were taught first and last names for even material eyewitnesses. So regarding the thing you were talking about, technically, in context, you were being treated as a material eyewitness. They only got your first name. But that's not... But you can tell there was also no cross-referencing, even with your own material that was publicly available, at least from what I remember, in terms of getting your last name.
Yeah, which wouldn't have been that hard, so they're not
Yeah.
very good at their job.
Like
Oh,
five, it
wait,
would have
that proves your
taken
point.
like
Shucks.
1 or 2 minutes at the most. I mean, every single article, like that was like 2016, and I was still doing my Adventures in Illinois Higher Education series, I think, at that time. And every single article I posted had like
Right.
my name at the top of the article, but they couldn't find it.
It did. I
They
remember.
couldn't find it.
Yeah,
Tax
that's pretty
dollar.
bad,
It's
man.
good. I love it. No, like it's so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I
That's
think it's good.
pretty bad.
It's good for
So
us.
in turn, so right, I see what you mean because so yeah, it mean in terms of shall I say statements that I have may or may not have made publicly regarding what exactly I think of government police and their moneyed interests over a period of several years, going in excess of more than 5 years back,
Longer than
before the
me.
hiatus, shall we say?
Longer than me, dude. You've been doing this
Yeah,
since like 2013. Yeah. I started in 2015. Yeah, you've been doing
that
it for a
sounds
couple
about
years longer
right.
than me. Yeah, at least a couple years longer than me.
Yes, that sounds about right.
So we've
Thereabouts.
so
Yeah.
to put another I guess thing on it. We've been using Jitsi together for almost 10 years. That's crazy.
Wow, damn. We're just getting old, dude. But that being said, yeah, I either way, I'll be finding out either way a conclusion whether these investigators are gonna. And see, that's the thing too. I had to list like 3 professional references as part of that application, and oh, excuse me. And I already let those references know, hey, you may or may not be getting a call from specific police department. And the reason why is because I applied technically to be a police officer, but it was also for I applied for 2 positions. The other was the dispatcher.
Mhm.
And so you may or may not be getting a call from a detective. And it's not because I got in trouble. It's because it would be part of the background investigative thing, which is normal as part of the hiring process. So I already let them know that because I didn't want them to get blindsided with a call from, yes, hi, this is Detective so and so from such and such PD. We're talking about yours
Mhm.
truly, basically. And can you wait a minute? Let's sit down and check. I don't want them like getting the high blood pressure with call about, oh my god, did something fucking happen? And it's like, no, something fucked happened. I applied for a job. If they call you, it's because I listed your name and your number. That's
Mhm.
it. Please say nice stuff about me.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, we've been going for coming up on 2 hours now, which is not surprising for the length of some of our conversations. Um, but yeah. Anyway, good to have you back on, and yeah, looking forward to the more in-depth series, which will flesh out a lot of these things that we've discussed tonight in more focused detail with actual outlines and such, because it is very easy for Kyle and I to get lost um, in certain things, and tangents and things. So we'll prevent that in the future.
But
somewhat.
relaying about the yeah, but relaying about what the chief of police of a particular ISD told me in person for over an hour was too good to pass up.
Oh yeah, for
Because
sure.
he's just like, I mean that's too good, man. And it's like, no, sir. This is how we're treated in our industry. Here's the good and the bad of it. We do have to deal with clients. We have to manage budgets. We don't get taxpayer fund. If anything goes wrong, it's not qualified immunity. It's full liability. And there's also the separate issue about civil liability, which you guys don't really have to worry about. Also, like, you guys think you have it hard? Cry me a fucking river,
Right.
Bludge. Cry me
Yeah.
a fucking river. Cry me an entire ocean, because they're worrying here. Okay, perfect thing to end out on. When he was saying that, I didn't say this to his face. I'll tell you guys this publicly and all that. When he was mentioning about the qualified immunity and then I mentioned about the full liability, or excuse me, the full, yeah, the fact that we don't get any immunity and that's full liability and also the civil liability side of it too, so criminal and civil, and all that. Thing I was thinking in the back of my head was, you whiny little brat. Like this like 50-something-year-old man was doing the equivalent of like worrying about a pimple on Britney Spears' ass, and I am literally talking to him about budgets and life and death issues. And he's like preening about all this other stuff, which is like he's got all these advantages and cheat codes because he's an agent of the state, and he's still bitching. And I'm telling him, hi, I understand that, but like I'm dealing with like much more serious shit over here. And you're like punching down something hard because you don't like the DPS requalification like requirement thing. You don't think it's frequent enough. And I'm like, okay.
Bitching about stipulations.
What else more is there to
whereas,
say, dude?
as we talked about earlier, where, the private security, since your response time is like, depending upon the area, a lot quicker, whether it's like 50 minutes quicker or 45 minutes quicker or half hour quicker. I mean, that varies, but you guys show up a lot quicker. You actually, stabilize the situation before those assholes get there, for the most part, or those assholes don't do anything, which is I think one of my texts in our previous conversations, that the Bloods will show up to a school shooting and not do a fucking thing, and it's like, what? Like, that's one of those things, like, even like just an average citizen, like a normal Joe, an average Joe that had a gun would go in there and save the kids, right? But the cops wouldn't. So
average response time for, and I will say this publicly, average response time for the Austin Police Department for a criminal trespass call, even when received by private security, is in excess of an hour.
So I was too lenient. Okay, I was being too lenient. That's still any of that's still way too long. But yeah, it's getting worse. Especially in the big states, it's getting a lot worse.
So it even gets worse when you look at a couple other things, and I'll say this more as an addendum because I know we're getting a little long in the tooth here. But like that, this might segue a little bit into the series, but like that other ruling that came down from DPS, where it was a bit of a gray area at first regarding whether any guards can carry whether armed security can carry rifles while on post. It was a gray area, and then DPS put their foot down and said, not only are we saying no, but if we catch any of you guys carrying rifles on post, first offense is a fine. Second time, it's going to be greater fine and like something else, and third time, it's like revocation of your license kind of thing. It's like if I remember correctly, it was like baseball rules. It's 3 strikes and you're out, pretty much. Like, they're not fucking around. It's like, wow. So think about that for a second. So, and this dovetails perfectly with the type of school security I'm doing now. Because some, not all, of the active shooters do like to use rifles, think about that. If we actually had to deal with an actual guy, an actual real threat, and it was an actual life and death incident, he's got a rifle. We've got pistols. I am certified for shotgun. Best case scenario, I'm running down halls with a shotgun. If I run out or something else happens, transition to pistol. But last time I checked, rifle rounds travel farther than most shotgun, pellets and slugs, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who's more on the ballistic side of things. If we're talking strictly about distance. So who's got the greater range advantage on that one? Oh, wait, that's right. The police get to have rifles in their fucking squad cars. God damn it. I knew there was a fucking angle here somewhere. Oh, wait, that's right. We're supposed to be, bullet catchers. Sorry, I keep forgetting that. God damn. Remember, warm bodies on post can also be bullet catchers. Jesus, I keep forgetting that. No wonder we're not allowed to carry rifles on post.
Yeah, you're that first line of folks they sent in on the old style military, where the first few lines were just like the bullet catchers.
Oh, that's right, cannon fodder. That was the original term, right?
There you go.
Oh, so DPS views us as fucking cannon fodder. Jesus, I knew there was some sort of political angle to it. Except now it's actually written the law that basically we're fucking cannon fodder if we work an active shooter contract. Jesus Christ. I knew it was something fucking stupid. Well, and here's the thing. So, like, in terms of day in and day out behavior, like, nothing happens at these schools. Like, what our normal behavior is we walk around, pull on the doors, exterior patrol, interior patrol on a certain frequency that I can't talk about because that is a security issue. But what I can talk about is we test the doors because the doors are supposed to remain locked. Classroom doors supposed to be locked. Shit is supposed to be locked up. That's it. If anything is not locked up, we are supposed to basically scream bloody murder. That's it. It's an access control issue because active shooters or any of the other types of fucking homicidal, mentally ill maniacs can't really be in a position to really hurt anybody if they can't get close to them. Period. That's why. It's a little hard to shoot fish in a barrel if you can't get to the fish.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, man, it'll be a I'm not gonna say fun series. It'll be a very informative and valuable series, and probably fun at some parts. I hope. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm gonna make it fun because one of the things that I actually, so there's some background piano noise from you, Kyle, and it actually works really, really well. So I might actually test that out in this episode, like just like a stock, like kind of fading piano thing, like in the background, because it sounds nice. It sounds nice. It's a good aesthetic.
Wait, you can hear that?
It's just barely. It's the perfect, like if it was continuous, it'd be perfect. But I can just hear like continuous, like somewhat continuous piano notes, and it's nice. It's a nice ad. So I'm gonna try it with this one, I think, in post production. See how it comes out. And then we do our fireside chats with the fireside stories from private security. I'll have like a crackling fire in the background too, and we'll make it.
That's actually not a bad idea. You should probably give that a try. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I don't want to waste time with that sort of stuff. But that was something I thought of earlier. I was like, this is gonna be fun. It'll be a good time. But Kyle, yeah, good to be back on the podcast, man. And got plenty more to discuss. I will go ahead and close her out. VonuPodcast.com for all things Vonu. LibertyAttack.com for all things audio publications, books, bundles, privacy tools, apothecary items from here at Veritas made by Aura, and I guess we've got PAZNIA Farms items here too, canned goods. So check out the website LibertyAttack.com for all sorts of things. We are not just publishers; we do everything. And then lastly, PAZNIA.com, PAZNIA.com for all things the Free Republic. Lots of editions, lots of updates to provide. I've done a lot of work, and I haven't done a whole lot of promoting it. So that will start tomorrow on the Agora podcast with Second Penguin, and I think Kyle and I will do because I got to fill him in on. He's had his own shit going on as we've all heard, and he hasn't necessarily probably kept up with all the developments on the PAZNIA network like most haven't. Like it's hard for me to keep up with too. So we might do an episode especially with Kyle and I, and he can ask his own questions, and it will spark a lot of. I'm sure he'll have a lot of valuable contributions. So that's definitely got that to look forward to. In addition to everything we talked about tonight. So with that said, I will leave it there. Thanks so much for tuning in, and later, guys.